What if you could never touch another human being? Not without devastating consequences. What if the one thing that makes us feel connected, a handshake, a hug, a kiss, was, well, for you, a lethal weapon? For the X-Men we know as Rogue, that's not a metaphor. It was her reality. Her mutant power isn't a gift. It's a profound curse, a poisoned touch that sparked one of the most compelling, tragic, and ultimately redeeming legacies in all of Marvel Comics. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Marvel Echoes Resonance. I'm your host, Will, and thanks for joining me for another deep dive. As a kid, I grew up watching the X-Men animated series, which of course turned into my love of the X-Men comics. And this one, well, it's personal. This character is one of my all-time favorites, and her story is, I think, one of the most important in X-Men canon. And we're talking about Rogue. Now, we've talked about this on the show before, about power being a curse. You just have to listen to our episode on Black Bolt to understand that. But Rogue's story is, well, a little different. Her curse isn't about property damage. It's about the absence of human connection. It's a profound personal isolation. To understand Rogue, you have to understand that she has two origin stories, and they are both, in a way, incredibly tragic. The first was an accident that forged her curse. The second was a deliberate sin that would define her legacy for decades. So let's start from the beginning. Before she was an X-Men, she was just a girl named Anna Marie in Caldecott County, Mississippi. One night, she was out with a boy named Cody Robbins. They share their first kiss, and her mutant power manifests. That single moment, she absorbs his memories, his energy, his entire life force, leaving him in a permanent coma. Think about that. This is a horrifying perversion of a coming-of-age milestone. At that exact moment she's supposed to be discovering intimacy, she discovers trauma. Her power, from its very inception, inextricably links human connection with profound, irreversible harm. Branded a monster, she runs away from home. And this is where she's found by two of the most influential people in her life, the shape-shifting mutant Mystique and her prognitive partner, Destiny. They become her surrogate parents. But as we know, this isn't a loving home. Mystique twists all of Rogue's loneliness, her despair, and her pain into anger. She grooms her for the Brotherhood of evil mutants. And this brings us to the origin number 2, the big one, the one that sparks her legacy and directly, tragically connects her to another hero. Now, before we get to this, we have to do what we do here best, and that's look at the behind the scenes, the ripple effect. Well, in 1980, Marvel published Avengers number 200. It is, to put it mildly, an infamous story. In it, Carol Danvers, the Miss Marvel of the time, is non-consensually impregnated by a man named Marcus Immortus, who had abducted and mind-controlled her. The story shockingly ends with the Avengers, her friends, waving goodbye as she happily agrees to live with her attacker. It was, and is, seen as a complete travesty. Chris Claremont, who was writing Carol's own book, was reportedly furious that the character had been desecrated in such a way. So 1 year later, in Avengers Annual number 10, he and artist Michael Golden created Rogue as a direct narrative retribution. Claremont couldn't just erase the past, so he forged a new character to destroy the Carol Danvers who had been so thoroughly violated, allowing her to be, well, reborn, free from that narrative trauma. And that is the context for what happens next. Driven by her adoptive mother's manipulations, Rogue is sent to attack Carol Danvers. The fight is brutal, and Rogue does the unthinkable. She holds on too long. The absorption process doesn't just copy, it steals. The transfer becomes permanent. The ripple effect is catastrophic. Rogue's body is fundamentally changed. She gets the iconic powers we all know, the super strength, the invulnerability, the flight. But she also absorbs Carol's psyche, whole. She is now haunted by a second set of memories, a duplicate personality of the woman she just violated. For Carol, the effect is devastating. She's left in an amnesiac shell, her powers and the identity stolen. Now, we'll do a deeper dive into that catastrophic fallout in the episode where we cover Carol Danvers, because that story needs a space of its own. But for Rogue, this act pushes her over the edge. The ghost of Carol Danvers is waging a war on her mind, and she is quite literally going insane. Desperate, she appears on the doorstep of the Xavier Institute, begging Professor Xavier for help. This is, of course, the ultimate test of Xavier's dream, to redeem a known terrorist. And of course, Professor X, as he is, accepts her. And that decision, that one act of compassion, brings Rogue's decade-long journey from a hunted, untouchable villain to one of the greatest heroes in the Marvel Universe. So that's the classic Rogue, the one so many of us grew up with. She was defined by this curse, by this ghost of her head and her tragic can't-touch romance with a certain, Cajun thief, who we're going to talk about very soon as well. For nearly 30 years, this was her status quo, up until 2009. In the pages of X-Men Legacy, writer Mike Carey decided, let's change that. And Professor X enters Rogue's mind and helps her heal. He theorizes her lack of control stems not from the powerful Carol Danvers absorption, but from the very first psychic fracture, the one that happened when she kissed Cody Robbins. By helping her heal that foundational trauma, the curse is broken. Now, for the first time, Rogue gains full, conscious control of her powers. And this is where the modern Rogue truly begins. This newfound control changed everything. It allowed her to explore her potential, not just as a powerhouse, but as a leader. This leads her to one of the most important roles in her life. She becomes a field leader of the Avengers Unity Squad, aka the Uncanny Avengers. This was Captain America's big idea after Avengers vs. X-Men, a team of both Avengers and X-Men to show the world that humans and mutants could work together. And who does Cap tap for the lead? Well, Rogue. It was a massive statement. Here, this former villain, this mutant who is a symbol of fear, now leading Earth's mightiest heroes. She proved to be an incredible, tough-as-nails leader, holding her own and commanding the respect of heroes like Cap, the Wasp, and even Deadpool. But her own journey to control wasn't quite over. Things in comic books are really never that simple. So we're going to fast forward to the almost wedding of Kitty Pryde and Colossus. We'll cover them as well in the future. In the chaos of the event, Rogue's powers are reset by an old-school Sentinel. She loses control, all of it. She's right back to the poison touch. Right back to square one. It's devastating. And this all happens right as she and Gambit finally decide to get married themselves. And this kicks off their own series, Mr. and Mrs. X. And this is where she learns to truly master her powers. It's not about a psychic fix this time. She learns her powers are still there, but they're fractured. She has to work to get them back. Throughout that entire series, she relearns her own abilities, piece by piece. She has to let go of the fear of her powers, the trauma that she's held on since she was a kid. It's not just a switch being flipped, it's her, as a mature adult, finally making peace with who she is. She realizes that her control was never just a physical thing, it was an emotional one. She had to master her own trauma to master her own gift. And, of course she does. This then leads up into the Krakoan era, where Rogue is a central figure. She's a member of the first elected X-Men team, a defender of the New Mutant Nation, and a key player in all of its major conflicts. She is a veteran, a leader, a wife, and a fully realized hero. And then that, of course, brings us to today in 2025. In the From the Ashes era, the dream is fragile, and the mutants are scattered, but Rogue is still standing. She's a core member of Cyclops' new X-Men team, based out of their Alaska headquarters. She is, at long last, no longer the ghost of someone else or the victim of her own powers. She is finally and completely herself. Rogue's entire life was defined by what she couldn't do. She was a hero defined by her limits, her isolation. Now that she's in full control, a leader, a wife, and one of the most powerful heroes on the planet, it's an amazing transformation to see. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that Rogue has finally mastered her powers and her past, who is she? Is her identity as a hero stronger because of the trauma she overcame? Or is she an extremely new person, finally free from that shadow of that poison touch? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks for listening to this episode of Marvel Echoes. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you subscribe or follow so you don't miss any of our other episodes. We've got a two-part punch coming up because we can't talk about Rogue's legacy without talking about two people she's most connected to. And that's right, we're going to cover Captain Marvel and Gambit later this week. Leaving a like and a review really helped the podcast grow. And please leave a comment. I want to know what characters you'd like to see me cover next. And for more content, including a deeper dive of this episode, new reader primers, and visual infographics, make sure you check out the link to our website below. Till next time, true believers, make mine Marvel.